Cruises are meant to be escapes, floating cities carrying thousands of strangers into sunlit waters, far from the pressures of ordinary life. But for the Bradley family, their first cruise together would not be an escape. It would become the beginning of a mystery that remains unsolved more than 2 decades later. In March 1998, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley boarded the Rhapsody of the Seas, a Royal Caribbean cruise liner, with her parents, Ron and Iva, and her younger brother Brad. The ship departed from San Juan, Puerto Rico, bound for the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. Amy was not the type to vanish without reason. She was fiercely independent, athletic, and confident. A former college basketball player, strong swimmer, and trained lifeguard. She had a tight-knit bond with her family. This was their celebration of her recent graduation and the start of her adult life. The Rhapsody of the Seas was enormous. 11 decks, casinos, nightclubs, restaurants, and pools. For many, it was a playground at sea. But for someone like Amy, it was also a place where you could be noticed or watched. The first days of the cruise were unremarkable. The Bradleys dined together, explored the ship, and joined activities. Amy, naturally social, mingled with other passengers and crew. One group in particular caught her attention: the ship's resident band, Blue Orchid. They played in the clubs at night, and passengers often stayed late to dance. Amy was photographed with one of the band members during the cruise. The interaction was friendly, but in hindsight, it would become a point of focus for investigators. On the evening of March 23rd, the Bradleys attended a Blue Orchid performance in one of the ship's nightclubs. Witnesses recall Amy dancing, laughing, and occasionally stepping outside the club for air. She spoke with several passengers and band members, including the bass player, Alistair Douglas, who was known as Yellow. By around 1 a.m., Amy and her brother Brad returned to their cabin. Their parents were already asleep, but at some point later in the night, Amy went back out to socialize. Brad saw her again in the early hours when they both returned to the cabin for the last time. The timeline of that morning is critical and contested. 5:15 a.m., Ron Bradley wakes briefly and sees Amy sitting on the balcony, smoking a cigarette. She's wearing a white tank top and dark shorts. He goes back to sleep. 5:30 a.m., band member Alistair "Yellow" Douglas later tells the FBI he spoke briefly with Amy near the elevators. This is the last confirmed sighting. 6 a.m., Ron wakes again. The balcony is empty. Amy is gone. Her shoes are still in the cabin, along with her ID and keycard. Only her cigarettes and lighter are missing. The ship is already nearing port at Willemstad, Curaçao. Crew members begin preparing for passengers to disembark. Ron and Iva immediately alert ship staff. They expect a lockdown, an announcement, a coordinated search, but it doesn't happen. The ship's crew insist on a quiet, discreet sweep of public areas. They refuse to make a public announcement over the PA system, citing passenger comfort and a desire not to alarm guests. As the ship docks, hundreds of passengers and crew step ashore, some carrying luggage, others mingling in the crowd. No one is stopped. No one is questioned. If Amy was still on board, the delay wastes precious time. If she had been taken off the ship, the opportunity to intercept her vanishes in minutes. In the days that follow, scattered reports begin to surface. A passenger claims to have seen a woman resembling Amy on the dock that morning, in the company of a man. Another recalls seeing her near the ship's gangway, looking uneasy. A security guard in Curaçao says he might have spotted her in the port area later that day. None of these accounts are confirmed, but they point to the possibility that Amy did not fall overboard. She may have walked off that ship, voluntarily or otherwise. The Bradleys remain on board while the ship's security and local authorities conduct interviews, but their trust in the process is eroding. Evidence isn't being collected. Passengers are already leaving. The cruise continues to its next stop. As Iva Bradley would later say, "We begged them to stop people from leaving. We begged them to make an announcement. They didn't. If Amy was there, they let her slip away." By the time the Rhapsody of the Seas completes its voyage, the Bradleys have returned home without Amy. In Virginia, they contact the FBI immediately. The FBI treats the case seriously from the start. Amy is an American citizen who vanished under suspicious circumstances on international waters, an environment notorious for its jurisdictional challenges. The Rhapsody of the Seas sailed under a Liberian flag, operated by a US-based company, and docked in foreign ports. The complexity of where the crime occurred and who has the authority to investigate adds friction to every step. The Bureau begins with interviews, passengers, crew members, the ship's band. Most claim to know nothing beyond what was already reported. But one account stands out. Alistair Yellow Douglas, the bass player, tells the FBI he spoke with Amy in the early morning hours of March 24th. The details are vague. He says she seemed normal. He doesn't recall where she was headed next. From the outset, there are three main possibilities. 1. Accidental overboard. The cruise line's quiet suggestion is that Amy might have fallen into the sea. But her family pushes back hard. Amy was a trained lifeguard, a strong swimmer, and the seas that morning were calm. 2. Voluntary disappearance. The idea that she simply walked away from her life is quickly dismissed. Amy had no history of instability, no known crisis, and had left behind money, identification, and personal belongings. 3. Abduction. The most disturbing theory, that Amy was taken, possibly by someone she met on the cruise, and forced into a criminal network. The last theory gains weight when witness sightings begin to emerge. Local police in Curacao receive reports in the days after the disappearance. Dockside sightings. 2 passengers claim they saw Amy disembarking with a man. She appeared to be in casual conversation but not overtly distressed. Beach encounter. A Canadian tourist later reports seeing a woman matching Amy's description on a Curacao beach with 2 men. He remembers her because she looked anxious and kept trying to get his attention, as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. These reports are unverified. No photographs exist, but the descriptions are consistent. Tall, athletic build, short brown hair, multiple tattoos, including a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her shoulder blade. The Bradleys never stop searching. They distribute thousands of flyers, keep her story alive in the media, and work closely with private investigators. Over the years, more alleged sightings come in. 1999, Curacao. A U.S. Navy sailor claims he saw Amy in a brothel. She told him her name, said she needed help, and that she was being held against her will. The sailor didn't report the encounter immediately, fearing trouble for being in the brothel, but later came forward. 2005, Barbados. A witness claims to have seen Amy on a beach, accompanied by a man with a threatening demeanor. 2005, computer image. A photograph surfaces from a Caribbean escort service website, showing a woman resembling Amy, older but with the same tattoos. The FBI cannot conclusively confirm the identity, but experts note strong similarities. Each sighting reignites hope and agony for the Bradleys. Law enforcement and private investigators increasingly consider human trafficking a likely explanation. Cruise ships, with their transient populations and lack of strict boarding controls in certain ports, offer an ideal hunting ground for traffickers. Amy's disappearance shares disturbing similarities with known cases of women being lured or forced into sex work in the Caribbean and South America. The presence of the ship's band in her last hours, her friendly personality, and the relaxed security environment could have made her a target. Royal Caribbean maintains that they cooperated fully with the investigation, but the Bradleys accuse them of downplaying the incident and failing to act in the critical first hours. The absence of a PA announcement, the lack of immediate lockdown, and the decision to allow passengers to disembark without questioning remain the most controversial aspects of the case. For the family, these missteps are not procedural errors. They are the moments when Amy's fate was sealed. By the mid-2000s, despite dozens of tips, the trail goes quiet. The FBI continues to keep the file open. The Bradleys continue to speak publicly, appearing on national television, documentaries, and in print. But no confirmed contact with Amy is ever made. Every so often, a new sighting renews the search, but each one ends the same way: inconclusive, unverifiable, and unresolved. By the late 2000s, Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance is more than a case file. It's a constant shadow over her family's lives. Iva and Ron Bradley live with an impossible duality: the crushing grief of loss and the persistent belief that Amy may still be alive. They keep her room intact, as it was when she left for the cruise. Birthdays pass with an empty chair at the table. Holidays become exercises in endurance. Brad, Amy's younger brother, wrestles with guilt, replaying that last night on the ship, wondering if there was something he missed. In 2005, a disturbing development surfaces. A member of an organization that searches for missing persons contacts the Bradleys with a photograph taken from an escort service website. The image shows a woman, scantily dressed, sitting on a bed. She is older than Amy would have been in 1998, but the facial structure, the eyes, and most chilling of all, the tattoos, match almost perfectly. The FBI investigates, but the lead fades. The website is traced to a Caribbean source, but the image is old, and no further information can be recovered. For the Bradleys, the photograph is both confirmation and torment. If it is Amy, it means she has been alive for years, but in the worst possible circumstances. The 1999 brothel sighting resurfaces in public discussion when the Navy sailor who reported it agrees to speak on camera. His account remains consistent. A woman approached him, said her name was Amy, and pleaded for help before being led away by men who appeared to be guarding her. Critics question why the sailor didn't act immediately. Supporters point to the fear of repercussions and the chaotic environment. The FBI treats the sighting as credible, but again, no proof emerges. In the years that follow, Amy's name appears periodically in law enforcement bulletins. Private investigators track tips across the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. One investigator claims to have spoken to multiple witnesses who saw Amy in Curacao years after her disappearance. Each description is eerily similar: the same athletic build, short hair, and distinctive tattoos. Yet every lead runs into the same wall. No photograph, no DNA, no confirmed contact. Without hard evidence, the sightings remain in limbo, too compelling to ignore, too unverified to close the case. For those who study the case, several haunting questions remain. Why did Amy leave her cabin that morning? Was she meeting someone, or simply stepping outside for fresh air? Who saw her last? Was it the ship's band member, or someone else entirely? Could the ship's lax security have enabled an abduction? Was she taken off the ship before anyone realized she was missing? In the absence of answers, the theories multiply. Some believe she was targeted on board, groomed in a matter of days, and removed from the ship with help from someone familiar with port operations. Others argue she might have left willingly with someone she trusted, only to realize too late that she was in danger. More than 2 decades later, Amy Lynn Bradley is still missing. The FBI lists her as a missing person under suspicious circumstances. A $25,000 reward remains for information leading to her safe recovery, and a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of anyone responsible for her disappearance. Her face has aged in the FBI's computer-generated age progression images, but for her family, Amy remains frozen in time at 23. Some missing persons cases fade quietly into the archives. Amy's does not. It refuses to rest. The persistent sightings keep the possibility alive that somewhere, in a room without windows, on a street in a city far from home, she might still be waiting for a chance to get out. Until then, the waters of the Caribbean hold their secrets, and the fate of Amy Lynn Bradley remains one of the most unsettling mysteries to ever take place at sea. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, please contact the FBI or your local law enforcement immediately. This case is a chilling reminder that evil often hides in plain sight, and that even in the most ordinary moments, lives can change forever. This is Trace of Evil, where the shadows are long and the truth is longer.